Right, good morning everyone. Hope you had a good day so far. Today we're going to discuss and chat about Navisworks and clash detection. Yeah, so let's get going. Right, so on the agenda, we're going to just chat about Navisworks specifically and look at what it actually is. Then we'll go through the the task of setting up selection sets, running the clash detection, and then we'll look at a little bit of benefits in the conclusion. Right. So, all right. So firstly, what is Navisworks? So basically, Autodesk has bought Navisworks a couple of years ago, and what Navisworks is primarily known for is it can bring in multiple models from different vendors into one federated model, and that obviously has its own benefits. And what you can do is obviously look at the models, you can present them, you can there's different things you can do. You can mark up, you can even within these model items you can attach a time frame when it's built and etc. And then that time it takes to build that you can put in a timeline so that you can see on day 1 what happens, on day 10 what happens, and on day 15 or whatever, or what's happened with that project. Right, so these individual objects you can assign time to and add it to a timeline, which is great for the construction process visualization. Right, there's other obviously things you can do as well. You can do quantification, meaning each of those elements that you've brought in from CAD software like Revit or other vendors' softwares, you will be able to add costs to, and then the software knows how many there are, and then it can do a little calculation to get the cost and the quantification of these elements. And then finally we also can do there's other things you can do, but clash detection, and that's what we'll focus on today in this webinar. Right, so when I do the live demo, or when I do the demo just now, I'll go through one or two of these tasks, how to present and how to create quantification of that. I'm not going to do everything, but I'll just show a couple of things. Alright, so the idea is to firstly import whatever you've got into Navisworks to do this clash detection. Before we talk about Navisworks, I'll also just show an example within Revit for doing clashes. If you don't know that, I'll show that a bit. And then once we've prepped the files, put it in Navisworks, we're going to look at setting up, looking at the selection, and then selecting, saving that into a set. And then we'll take those sets and then do a clash between the two sets. The example I've done is walls and ducts on the MEP side. That's typically a problem on site that could be resolved in the CAD software or in Navisworks to see where those clashes are. Alright, so we'll talk about that as well, and then we'll just look at an export and an import scenario, and then we'll talk about the benefits. Right, so let's I'm just going to backtrack slightly. I'm going to go open Revit, and within Revit, as I mentioned, I just want to chat about the clash detections within Revit. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to open up a project that includes a linked file. So this is a sample project within Revit. It's called the Advanced Revit MEP project. Now, as I mentioned, Revit also has a ability to look at two models and then give you feedback with regards to clashes, etc. Right, so this is the sample model. I've just created a 3D view, that's why it looks a little bit different than if you had just opened it normally. But if I go to the manage links, you'll notice that sorry, I have actually opened the wrong model, not the MEP one. This is used for I'm going to use that for the Navisworks. There's the folder that I was interested in, so I'm going to do the structural model. Yes, right. Apologies. Okay, so this structural model has got the, if I go to insert manage links, it's got that architectural model built in. So not built in but linked. So there's two models at play here. If I want to show just the the linked model, I can go to maybe just open that. Let me just open the linked model, that one, and just show. Let me just close this rather. Just open the linked model. So this is the architectural model that is linked into the structure. Right, so there's the architectural model. Right, so this one that's the school. I'll close for now, and I'll just reopen the structural one. Apologies for opening and closing and that sort of thing. But okay, so here I have the structural model, and as I mentioned, the linked file is here. Right, so if I go just to collaborate at the top, and I go to interference check, this is the Revit clash detection that I just wanted to mention. Right, so here you can see you've got only two comparisons within Revit. So here you can perhaps select the architectural model and then the structural model. Right, so from the architectural model, maybe we want to pick up maybe the columns, and then in the structural model we want to pick up maybe floors or whatever. And if I say okay, we'll have then a list of where the architectural columns and the floors intersect. You'll see that there's the concrete floor and the round column on the architectural side. Obviously this list is a little bit cryptic. I can go and say show, and it'll kind of highlight it in the model wherever that is, and maybe I can go back to show, continue, and it'll give me a indication of where that clash happens. But as you can see, maybe I should have maybe changed the model to wireframe, etc. However, I can also go export this, and I can export it. I'm just going to make that 3. Right, so I can export this to HTML, and then later on open that and have a look at that those clashes. Alright, let me just go to the folder and just open that particular file. Right, and just produces a HTML document that has got between model A and model B a clash. Right, important is the ID there. You obviously can go into Revit and open up or search for that ID specifically and find where that interference happened. Alright, so there's no other kind of visualization, etc. It's just a report that it does. Yes, it shows it in the drawing at that sort of thing. Alright, so yes, you can do it, so that's awesome. But what I want to do is, obviously we're discussing Navisworks, so I'm just going to minimize this now. Alright, so let's open Navisworks and then this is the Navisworks, and what you will see at the top here is the a couple of tools, and sorry, I just want to get to the particular. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just have a look at Navisworks, and then we're going to set up and prep the file. So we're going to import the model, and then we're going to add the selection sets. Right, so within Navisworks you've got various tabs, and as I mentioned, you can do markups, you can do renderings. Obviously you can save certain positions within your model. You can do a render and so on. Right, so if I go back to home, you'll see there on the right hand side is the particular tools. There's rendering, quantification, timeline, and clash detective. Alright, so okay, so let's get those models in. So I'll basically go append, and I will use the a Revit file. Now, as you can see, Revit is now natively included as a Navisworks format, so you can just open up a Revit file. In the past, older versions, you had to install a exporter that you export from Revit specifically to Navisworks. In saying that, you've got lots of other options. There's FBX, there's 3D Studio Max, there's other vendors as well that you can look at and import from. Alright, so as you can see, there's SketchUp, etc., SolidWorks. Right, so in this case, I'm just going to go Revit, and then I will open up one of these items. So there's the Revit school. So it's basically the same school that we looked at earlier with the site and everything. Right, so it's basically imported that Revit model, and you obviously can navigate, you can do measurements, etc. So I'm just going to not do that at this point. Then I'm going to just add additional model. This is the MEP model that's got ducts and other objects in that we can manipulate and check. Right, if once we've appended the models, basically adding them, you might need to just kind of reposition or move the models into each other. Right, and I've done this before. Obviously, first up, what we should do is when you import these objects specifically from Revit, what I would suggest you do is go to the options first within Navisworks. We should have done that kind of prior to appending, and then check through these options. The one option that I want to discuss is specifically this particular option. So you go to the Navisworks options, you go to the Revit import file types, and then you go look through these options on when importing a Revit file, and just have a look at what they're going to import. Are they going to import links? Are they going to import lights? Is it going to convert just one view of the entire project? Which internal coordinate system is going to use? That sort of thing, so have a look at this first, and then importing or append those files. Right, so I'm just going to cancel that. Right, I've previously saved a model that's kind of the two models line up nicely, but I just want to show you what you could do. Alright, so I'm going to go to the review tab. I'm going to go measure, just you know, from a corner there to a corner there. Alright, so you've got X, Y, Z coordinates. Alright, so that basically stays there, and then I'm going to just open the selection tree. This selection tree just looks at all the models that I've imported, and the MEP one is the white one that you see there. So I'm going to right click on that and transform that. It's basically moving it about. Alright, and then I'll move it to those coordinates, you know, so X 3287, and then plus minus, you know, if it's a particular model, I'll do it more precise. Alright, so I'll say XYZ, XYZ, and once that's done, the model is transformed or moved into the other one, so that they kind of line up nicely. So it's basically just you know, selecting the model. First you obviously measure, and then go and transform that or move it about. Okay, so that done. Let's look at a couple of views or whatever. Alright, so just some cool manipulation. There's a sectioning that you could do, so you can section the particular project. Obviously this section plane you can adjust, etc. I'm gonna you know, you can rotate this particular plane to you know, show different things within your model, and just go and have a look at. You can obviously move it as well, you know, up and down or whatever. Right, so so yeah, you can now go and have a look at the various items and models and things, if they line up, etc. And right, and each time you have a nice little view, you are able to, you know, save the viewpoints. So maybe I'll go save that. You'll see on the right hand side there, a view is saved, and I'll call this short section or whatever, or section 1, etc. Right, so that's now a view that's been saved. If I go to any other view, you know, there are different views that's come in from that CAD application, but I can easily just go back to that short section as a particular view port or point. All right, so it's just kind of looking at you know, just manipulating the models, etc. I don't know what happened there. All right, okay, so basically we have enabled or set up the model. You've seen me look at the you know, the different models on the left here. As you select a model, it selects that particular item model, or you can go into and delve into the particular, you know, ducts on level 2, for instance, and you know, you can, you know, right click on that and hide unselected. So basically you know, hide everything else, so that you can have a look at what's happening with the ducts on level 2, for instance, you know. So you can very easily go and you know, look at specifics on these projects. All right, etc. Okay, so now once you've got that, we can go back to home, and remember, this is the selection tree. Then there's sets. All right, now if I manage the sets, what it does is, this is kind of, if you select from the selection area, you can kind of save your selection for future reference. For instance, as I mentioned, you know, I go to those ducts. They are selected. They're just not kind of isolated or shown. But so level 2, the ducts, I'll just use this tool to save the selection, and I'll call this the MEP ducts level 2 or whatever. Right. So and I'll just give it a name. If I deselect them, perhaps on the Revit model, I want to, or the architectural model, I want to, you know, look at the level 2 walls. So these are the floor walls, and I'll just kind of save that as the architecture walls level 2. You know, and so you can select different things, if you want to, and kind of just save those sets over here. Alright, at any point in time you can come back to these sets and just kind of select them off the selection list, this little area. Obviously you can delete, you can rename, you can copy, etc. Okay, so you can also select multiple things. So maybe you want maybe floors, and you hold down control and just pick a couple of things, and that could be a different selection set, so at this point I've just kind of picked on one just to get that going. Alright, so that's basically the sets that we have picked, and what we now can do is we can go to the clash detective. So at the top there's the clash detective. I'll open that, and it opens up a whole screen on the left there. These panels you can also hide, just to illustrate that. On the right hand side, this properties panel is pinned, so obviously if I select something, the properties will display here, but if I unpin it, it kind of just auto hides itself. This is the viewports. So you'll see on the right hand side it's got a little indicator there. As I hover over it, it expands to that, and obviously you can pin it again. So yeah, even though the screen is kind of, or my visuals are quite small there, these panels can be minimized. Right, but back to the clash detective. Alright, so I've got the back to the slideshow. Right, so we've done the importing. We've looked at moving the models about. We've set up the selection sets. So what we're now going to do is we're going to run this clash detection and see what has happened. Right, so back to Navisworks. This is a clash. There are no tests defined, so I'll go and add a test. Right, so there's the little test at the top there. I can rename this, call it maybe testing or checking on level 2 the walls and the ducts, for instance, and you'll notice some coloring over here, but I'm just going to leave it test 1. Alright, at the bottom of that test 1 you'll see different things, rules and results. Now rules could be something like pick up all the walls on level 2 and select them, and then as selection A, and then maybe pick up all the ducts on level 2 as selection B. So you can also set up rules and then take it from there, but we've just used the selection and the selection sets. Right, so I'm going to just drop down here to sets, and it displays the sets as opposed to all the information. Right, now I can use this as well. I can just go to the particular object type, walls on level 2, but because we've set it up already, I'll go to sets. Alright, so now it'll list the sets, and you'll see selection A, selection B. I'll pick up the walls on selection A, and maybe the ducts on B. It doesn't matter which way around. Right, then there's some settings here. Hard clash is if they actually clash, or occupy the same area, and you can also have a clearance, so if it's within 1 meter of each other, or 20 centimeters, or whatever, so you can manipulate over here. Right, so I'm just going to hard clash, and I'll go run the clash, and you'll notice that there are no clashes over here. Right, so meaning that there's no ducts on level 2 and walls on level 2 that's clashing. Now that's a human error that I have done. Let's meaning that what I wanted to show is maybe the ducts on level 1, I think, and then there's the ducts, but it's fine. I'll just kind of select those and then go and say let's create that. That's MEP, ducts level 1. Alright, cool. So I've added another little area here, and I'll go back to select, and I'll say the walls with the ducts, and I'll say run. Right, so great. Basically I just kind of reselected the particular walls and levels, and to kind of show the clashing. Right, so you'll see here multiple clashes, 44 of them. If they don't show on the left hand side, it's just because the display settings here are by default they're closed, and by default I don't think the hide other is enabled, so it kind of just focuses on that area, but you don't have a alternative little isolation tool here. Right, meaning that if you click hide other and I scroll through these, you basically as you pick the particular clash, it hides the other elements. Alright, within your model. Right, so you can go and now have a look at that, investigate where these items are found, or where they intersect in which grid line, and then go and go and manipulate that. Okay, obviously that's hard, etc. Right, they are highlighted, and that sort of thing. You could also go and write a report, very similar to what we did earlier, and let me just leave it as let's go HTML and go write report, and I'll say save. Right, if I open that item, let me just go back there. Where's the particular desktop? Okay, so there's the test clash report, and you'll see more particular information on that, those clashes that we've found. Right, there's also a ability to look at these clashes in the CAD application. At this point I'm not going to talk about that. It's called where you can open the CAD application and then basically change and alter, maybe open up the architectural model, create a gap there, and then come back and look at rerun the clash and see if it has been solved. Right, but the idea here is that very quickly, very easily, you can find the particular clashes, and you can have a look at them to visualize them. Right, you can also take this and save or export this clash test. It just exports it as a XML file that you can re-import at a later stage in a future project. Alright, basically ducts on level 1 and walls on level 2. Alright, so you don't have to go and repick these objects. Now obviously in our case we've very quickly picked these items, but maybe it's more elaborate, and then it makes more sense, rather than picking it for each project, to kind of just export your tests and the appropriate selections. Okay, so right, so basically that is what I wanted to show today. I'm going to just minimize these. It doesn't matter. Let me just go to my right. Okay, so firstly, when you open up and load in these models into the Navisworks, there's a large benefit, or a great benefit that you have, is it reduces the file size. Just to give you an idea of that file size, if I look at the particular model here, you'll see that's the appended models. Those are the two Revit models, basically that one and that one, that is kind of merged into one. Yes, it's the file, but it converted the Revit file into a very smaller NWC file, which is the Navisworks content. Alright, so as you can see, the file size is much smaller. It's even emailable, then so the appended is just taking these models and just joining them together, but it obviously converted the larger model 36 to 8, that sort of thing. Right, so that's a great benefit because it reduces the file size. You can actually email that to the different people to have a look at it in Navisworks. Right. Also, the Navisworks clash detection I find is more visual. It's easier to manage in Navisworks than perhaps in Revit, especially the visualization, and also if there's many clashes to kind of go through them. Right, and the whole idea of this clash detection is that you, before going on site, is to just kind of look at your models and see where the clashes happen. Now, we just did a simple clash between walls and ducts, but you can obviously take the whole model and compare it to the whole model of the architectural and the MEP, and maybe there's other clashes, like maybe there's water pipes or whatever that's also clashing through floors and walls and various things. Right, so, and the idea is then to solve that prior to construction, so that you don't have to spend money rerouting ducts and pipes, etc. We just used a ducts and pipe, or a duct example, but it can apply to anything else on the structural side as well, steel and columns and beams and things. All right. Okay, so thank you very much for attending. That's basically the webinar that we prepared, and hopefully it helped you looking at even a little bit of Revit comparisons, and then also the Navisworks clash detection. Right, so if you've got any questions, my email is at the bottom there, or just kind of go to mgfx.co.za and contact us there if you've got any questions, if you want to ask. Right, thank you very much, and basically that concludes the webinar. See you on the next one.